The collaboration of all of the positive valued indies can be a greater power for good as a whole, as a unit. It used to be a anomaly to have a Saratov approach or a Freetown or something in the theaters, right? It was an anomaly. Like there's something of that caliber, value and specific, and now there should always be something in there that's a good opportunity. So people that are looking for that can go to the movies as often as anyone.
This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. In today's episode, we're joined by Susan Tuckett from Susan Tuckett Media. We'll be talking about distributing indie films, especially here in Utah, and we'll answer the listener questions. How did we end up with such a unique distribution arrangement? And how did Garrett meet Purdy Distribution back in the day? This is Truly Independent, Episode 5. All right, everybody, welcome. Another episode of Truly Independent. Oh, we're very excited to be here. Garrett, how you feeling today?
Hey, Darren, good to see you. I'm feeling good. I'm excited for today's chat.
Me too. We have a great guest today, and I'm excited to dive into that conversation with her. But first, you seen anything good this last week?
Well, I did, but it's kind of I don't know if it's independent enough, but it's a movie called Top Gun Maverick. My daughter, well, let's see, we were watching a documentary. We were watching the Blue Angels, which is a new documentary on Amazon, which is kind of fun. And then we're talking about Top Gun and all that. And my daughter said, "Oh, I haven't ever seen Top Gun Maverick." And I was like, "What?" Okay, so the next night, we got the whole family together and watched it on the big screen downstairs and thoroughly enjoyed it. It holds up. That doesn't count as independent, but you know.
No, that's okay. But I have an idea now. After I tell you what I saw, I think I have an idea for this podcast. So I got to go see Inside Out 2. I was invited to a special screening the night before, and it was really, really good. I was shocked at how solid it held up as like a sequel to a really perfect movie. Inside Out was great. One of my favorite Pixar films. I think one of the most beloved Pixar films. And so that's a high bar to go and like hit it out of the park again. They really nailed it. It got me twice emotionally, where I was just tearing up in the theater full of people. Of course, I look over, my wife is bawling her eyes out because she loves this stuff. But it was so good. It was so good. I'm curious why they replaced a couple of the voice actors, but that's not the point of this conversation. But here's an idea for you. I'm going to throw you a curveball. What if we, as Truly Independent Podcast, committed to watching an independent film every week, so that we're not just talking about the big movies that are in theaters, and then we'll put the links, or we'll put a list on our podcast page of what we liked, and we could, I don't know if we go in and rate them or give them rankings or anything like that, but we could just have a running list of, here are great independent films that are out that you can see now. As we share them each week, we'll just update it on the page.
That sounds great. That sounds very fun. I hope Inside Out 2 is able to dig out of their $154 million weekend, just being buried with all that reception. But yeah, I'm hearing great things. I will say I did watch an independent film this weekend. I watched Ordinary Angels. It's no longer in theaters, but boy, it sure, it's very applicable to this podcast, as we talk a lot about faith-based cinema. And the Irwin brothers produced that, and just hit a home run with it. It's very good, hit all the marks, and I was affected by it.
Yeah, they're following the Garrett Batty playbook, and they only make good movies.
I switched that around real quick. They do incredible jobs, an incredible job. Okay, and I will point out, let's see, in the top 10 box office weekend, we always try to look for some indie film. It looks like, I don't know if this counts as an independent film, Lionsgate released it. The Strangers Chapter 1 was number 9. I don't know much about that film. I would imagine it's some sort of horror movie. But good. And then just out of the top 10 is A24 released a movie called Tuesday that expanded to 654 screens from 2 screens. So it's now 654 screens. Their per screen average was $447, and they are number 12. So that's about the screens that we're going to open on Carpenter. We just need a higher per screen average, uh, and hopefully we'll get into the top 10.
That's awesome. Yeah, it looks like there's a few that were kind of in that release range. The 654, Treasure at 650, Firebrand at 442.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a model. Roadside Attractions, Bleecker Street, A24. These all release independent films. So this is exactly what we're trying to do. Okay, well, I'm excited about our guest.
Yeah, let's bring her on. Hey, indie filmmakers and movie lovers. This show is sponsored by Purdy Distribution. Since 2011, they've been bringing incredible independent films to theaters, like Garrett Batty's The Saratov Approach, T.C. Christensen's Love Kennedy, and McLean Nelson's Once I Was a Beehive. They've worked with top-notch directors like Mitch Davis and Mark Goodman, specializing in family, faith-based, and funny films. This year alone, they've released hits with JK Studios like Go West and Villains Inc., and have even branched out internationally with films shot in South Africa and Japan. Purdy Distribution works closely with indie filmmakers, designing personalized distribution plans, whether it's a theatrical release or straight to streaming on platforms like Amazon, iTunes, Google, and more. If you have a PG or PG-13 film ready for the world, think about reaching out to Purdy Distribution. They're approachable and knowledgeable, ready to help you visualize your film's distribution. Even if your film isn't fully polished, they can offer valuable guidance. Plus, if you need that crucial distribution piece for investor packages, Purdy Distribution can provide a letter of intent to distribute, helping you secure funding without locking you into a contract. Mark your calendars for Purdy Distribution's upcoming releases: Tokyo Cowboy on August 30th, the digital release of Thabo and the Rhino Case on September 1st, Faith of Angels in theaters on September 12th, Villains Inc. on Amazon and iTunes on October 1st, and The Carpenter on November 1st. To stay updated on these releases and more, sign up for their newsletter at purdydistribution.com. That's P-U-R-D-I-E distribution.com. Now, back to the show. Welcome everybody to another episode of Truly Independent. We are excited today. We have another guest. Susan Tuckett with Susan Tuckett Media Group is with us today. And oh my goodness, Garrett, why don't you introduce Susan and then we'll bring her on. I'm very excited to get into this conversation today.
Susan, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm great. Thank you. I'm honored to be a guest on this tremendous show.
Well, Susan, it's a thrill to absolutely a thrill to have you here. You and I have worked together. I think our first experience working together was back in 2013.
I think so.
A minute ago, with one of my independent releases. And Susan, you were the outdoor media buyer, is what you were introduced.
Anything traditional. Back in 2013, it was anything traditional.
Okay.
Outdoor television, radio, all that fun stuff.
Which is amazing, and it'll be interesting to talk to you now and to see what is considered traditional now.
That's changed, yeah.
But yes, and so and you've subsequently helped on each one of my releases, and for which I've been very, very grateful. And we're just thrilled to have you on here and to ask questions and to talk about independent film and now your experience as a distributor. I just wanted to start with that. And then Susan, you've just come off of you're in the midst of
still in the midst
of a successful independent film release. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. It has just been an absolute privilege to work with T.C. Christensen on Escape from Germany. And it opened April 11th. And so we are starting week 11 on Friday. So we just booked week 11 and we're still in more theaters than I think his first film started in, than 17 Miracles started in. So the trajectory is still up. So it's all still all systems go.
Okay, the movie's called Escape from Germany, and it's been in theaters now 11 weeks. You've booked your 11th week this Friday.
Yes.
What does that look like? What is that kind of initial, whether it's Escape from Germany or a film booking in general, independent film? What does that look like for you when you take the film? What is your process? What's your next step?
What he's saying is, have you slept at all in the last 11
No.
weeks?
In fact, this morning I thought, wow, I wonder when it is that I'll just slumber peacefully, because it doesn't end. It's not over until the last theater says no, it's not over. So you're constantly seeking and searching, turning over pebbles. They used to be huge boulders and then stones and now pebbles. Where have I not been yet? What town have I not been in? It was challenging sometimes when you'd have some big Regal say, no, you can't have LA. You just can't have LA. Well, you had to have LA. So you had to meet and find all different kinds of sizes of theaters that had come onto the map in all different time periods. It was delightful, actually, because you're working with some mom and pops and some big shops, and then you get Regal to say, oh, I missed it. So then Regal books, and it's just been thrilling. It's just fun.
It-
Fun.
okay, so it's been an up and down process. What was the open like? You booked it on how many screens do you open on?
We booked it in the Utah DMA because, that's a designated market area. It's a media marketing term. And for Utah, the DMA is as far as those TV signals will travel. So that included Rock Springs, it included Mesquite. We kicked off on a general conference week.
So
So
April.
that was a great last hurrah on the weekend to say this week in theaters this week. So we actually snuck in one more day into the weekend, opened on a Thursday instead of a Friday. So that built the weekend. It gave it a little bit of a bolster, which was nice.
Okay, so
So that's
let me
the
just
reason.
bring any like outside listener up to speed. So, TC Christensen is a Utah-based filmmaker who has an incredible following, centrally located in Utah.
Correct.
So, General Conference is a weekend in which there's a lot of media and attention in Utah for members of the church that TC belongs to, and so you opened
We
that
we
weekend.
call it we call it the Super Bowl of that particular
Perfect.
genre because honestly, in television ratings, it is number 2 after the Super Bowl. And actually, just fun fact, when Gordon B. Hinckley was alive and before there was so much fraction between all of the media outlets, Gordon B. Hinckley actually beat the Super Bowl one year. So that's a little fun fact
in
for you.
in that Utah
Yeah.
market. Well,
So
fantastic.
that kicked us off.
Okay, so you
Mhm.
targeted the DMA, and I didn't realize. Okay, DMA, designated media. What is it?
Marketing area, same thing.
Designated marketing
As
area,
far as it's as far as those signals will travel.
and the country is divided up into 20.
210 different media areas, and it's based on how far those signals will travel.
Okay,
So yes, 210. And Utah is ranked, I think, 34 right now, 34th in size from those 210 markets.
so your goal when you open is that look, we are going to just own the Utah DMA in as many theaters as we can, or how does that work?
Your goal is TC made the first part so easy. He just made a terrific film, and it's downhill from there. If you have a great film, it's downhill from there. But if you don't know there's a great film out there, you can't go. So the impact of the designated market area is how many people can you reach? And that weekend of marketing reached 50% of
Of the
Utah.
DMA.
50% of households were reached that weekend between streaming, digital, television, radio. 50%. So
So
that's good when you figure that everyone is not even interested in a film genre that has the Church of Jesus Christ in it.
Yeah.
So it was a great hit.
Okay.
That's how we started.
That's incredible, Susan. So there's this balance then between booking the theaters and then creating awareness.
Yes.
And those are
So there's a
simultaneous, or how does that work?
You don't want to create awareness too soon because everyone's creating awareness. And so if you've created your awareness, but the movie's not there and they can't find it, they're frustrated and they're on to the next thing that the media has told them to go and find.
Okay.
So the timing is pretty it's very strategized because it's on a budget too. If you spend that P&A money too early before people are ready to buy a ticket, you're sorry out of luck.
Yeah.
And if you spend it too late and didn't get people in the theater in time, you're sorry out of luck because the theater didn't see the growth. So it's just really you've just got to have those two pistons firing together as a unit, really, to get it off.
Incredible.
So then it's off the
did.
ground, and strategically speaking, it had a terrific per screen average. So high so that other areas that would not traditionally pick up a film associated with that genre were calling and saying, what is this film? Why is this per screen average so high? We have got to have this film. So
Yeah.
that was terrific too.
If you're willing, Susan, can you give us like some context there? Like, what is a good per screen average? For those listening, like we're talking about things like P&A, which stands for prints and advertising. That's your marketing budget, right? Mm-hmm. But what's a per screen average and what's a good one? What are you aiming for with a movie like this?
Well, you're aiming to be profitable. So let's just start there, right? Because you can make $100 $1 at a time and take 100 days, or you can make $100 in one day. And either way, you've got $100 of profitability. So it's not the killer factor. But if you can get a per screen average of 2,000, that's something that they really look at. 2,000 is a bar, I guess, in the industry. That something higher than that is kind of a wow, that's what we need to consider, is that and higher. And so there were days when TC was triple that with that film. So they were looking.
And are they measuring that on a per day basis or a weekend or a week?
That's a good question. And yes, to all of the above. They particularly look at the weekend because film buyers book on Monday and Tuesdays. So Friday and Saturdays are the big movie going days. And then numbers are crunched fast through that weekend. And they have those numbers first thing Monday morning. So Sunday night, the emails start to come. We're ready to look at this, or we're ready to renew, et cetera, because they've seen those averages from the weekend. So a theater week does not start on Monday and end on Sunday. It starts on Friday and ends on Thursday. If a movie is playing in a theater on a Saturday, it will be there the next Thursday. And then it starts over again on Friday with a new selection or renewal.
Gotcha.
So what does a Monday morning look like for you then? I mean, is that just a scramble?
Monday morning it's a fun scramble. If you're an adrenaline junkie, it's whatever you do to get adrenaline, it's like that. You're trying to get the quick yeses done super early so that you have more time for those yeses that'll take a little bit more time. You're trying to, in a market where you might have two theaters that wanted it that were located very close to each other, you have to kind of bank, is this one going to say yes? This is the one I want more. So you go after this one earlier and get your yes, so you're not so worried about that one, etc. So it's fun. It's busy for the film booking industry, for those buyers. I don't think anyone has lunch on a Monday. They go in early, they stay late, and everything happens on Monday. And then Tuesday, you pick up the things that didn't happen on Monday, which means kind of down the priority.
Wow.
Okay.
I would love to have you check my math here a little bit, because I know a lot of filmmakers listen to this, and people who have not distributed a film want to independently distribute their films. So if I'm an independent filmmaker, which I am, and we're distributing our movies this fall, we're aiming for a $2,000 per screen average, which, about considering an average ticket is $10, that's like 200 tickets for that weekend. It's probably better for me to go and think about how many theaters I'm going to release in. I'd rather have 10 theaters at a $2,000 plus average than 100 theaters at a $200 average. What do you think about that? Or am I just like
You're asking me
spinning
that
wheels
question.
here?
Well, that's such a good question. In the first couple of weeks before your film is established as a success, then that per screen average is much more critical. But once you're known as, hey, this is a good movie, it's got a high per screen average. People aren't checking the math as much on subsequent weeks. They just know it came out of the gate fast and hard and everyone loves it. Then pick them all up. Pick them up at the same time.
That's awesome. Very cool. I hadn't really, I knew what that was, but hadn't gotten into the weeds on it. So thank you for indulging me there for a second.
I talked to a different film booker, distributor, and it was a terrific, I thought, philosophy. And the philosophy was, we want people to see the film. Anybody that wants to see the film should be able to see the film. Get the film to them. If that's going to get your per screen average from 2,000 down a little lower, but you have audiences, maybe smaller audiences, maybe a smaller town, but full, why in the world would you not do that? The head buyer at Cinemark, in fact, he was one that agreed with that philosophy, because I asked him flat out, because I'm a lucky rookie, like I've said before. And so I asked him, do I really want to spread into these Cinemarks nationwide this early, or do I want to wait and keep my per screen average up? He said, why in the world would you wait if I have theaters full of people in cities throughout the nation that want to see it now? And that's what it's like, okay, per screen average, I don't really care anymore. You're going to slide with the purpose of getting the overall grosses up.
Okay, so Susan, I want to shift gears for a second, because that's fascinating. Monday is the stress day. Tuesday is kind of a cleanup day. At some point, when you've booked your 100 screens or 200 screens, whatever it plays on, you've got to ship the film and poster or trailer to all of those theaters. Can you give me an overview of that process?
Yes, it's like shipping anything from Amazon. The more tight of a timeline you need it shipped in, the more of an expense that's going to be. So the minute you book a theater, if you book it on a Monday, get that DCP out that minute, get the posters out that minute. Don't wait
The DCP
for
is
it
just this
to,
hard drive that goes to every theater.
yes, it's the film. It's the actual film that's going to the theater that is going to play the film. So you have to, and it's a physical, it doesn't have to be, but in a lot of cases still it's a physical delivery. It's not an electronic delivery. Garrett is doing his Vanna White
Something like this.
impersonation now.
Just a
Yes.
regular old hard drive.
Just looks like a 4 terabyte hard drive. But what's funny is I think it stands for digital cinema print, but it's not. It's not a print. It's a digital. It's not. It's so funny how we've kept some of those words around for as long as we have.
If you scroll on your computer screen, is the minute that you've scrolled past the main content, we call it below the fold, which is an old newspaper term. So yes, some things carry on, and that one did. So I think that as we move forward, I can't see why everything wouldn't become more just immediate and electronic, and you can deliver it in a minute. But anyway, you've got to prepare and be aware of those couple of days.
Okay. Is that something an indie filmmaker? I'm sorry. Is that something an indie filmmaker?
Go ahead.
I hope there's not a delay on my end. Is that something an independent filmmaker? I'm going to say that again. Is that something an independent filmmaker could think about strategically? Like if there are theaters that accept the digital version, you could send a Dropbox link or whatever it is, or upload a file and save the money on the DCP. Like, is that a strategic thing, or am I getting too into the weeds on that?
You're too in the weeds there at this particular moment in time, because the same company that sends out the DCP, the physical drive, also sends out the electronic drive. So no, you're not. It's not a Dropbox thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think too, the last thing that an independent filmmaker wants to be is like the nuisance or the hey, we're going to cause extra work for this theater chain that we've begged to book our movie.
It has to be as easy as possible. That's exactly right. It has to be as easy as possible. There was a good example of that when I was sending out the posters, the big one sheets that hang in front of theaters, and inside the theaters. I thought, well, wait a minute. I've been in their offices and they have those cardboard tubes full of posters all over the office. So I just printed a small version of the key art, a 5x7 of the key art, and just slapped that across the front with the address so that they knew that's where the Escape from Germany poster was, in that tube. They didn't have to, just little details like that for exactly what Garrett just said. Make it as easy as possible for them to succeed.
Yeah, because they want to. I mean, we're doing
Mhm.
this budget for The Carpenter for its release, and a significant amount of the budget, or a chunk of the budget, is for in-theater marketing. Like theaters have their own marketing campaign. They're doing their best to try to get an audience to show up to that particular theater. And so, yeah, if we can give them a little bit of money to help market the movie, and then give them the materials that they can use to market the movie, um, there's more of a chance of success.
It has to be a win-win or nobody wins. You help the theater succeed or you don't succeed.
Yeah.
And they're terrific people there, that terrific people. I've just been really impressed. And a lot of generational families in the film industry, that's been really fun
Oh,
to know them too. They care. They
yeah.
care about their industry. They want it to continue.
Susan, you've been generous with your time. I have one last kind of question or topic to ask you, and then but we don't want to hold you longer than you've agreed to hold, longer than your contract. Uh, Settlement. I mean, you've done all the work. You've gotten the movie out there. It's now played in theaters. It's done a certain amount per theater. Is part of your process as a distributor then tracking down the money and say, okay, theaters,
Yes.
you I mean, is it a 50-50? Or
You
whatever
are
details you want to share, please share.
you are the booking agent between that filmmaker and the theater, and it's your responsibility that the contract between the two of them is fulfilled, including that payment. And that payment needs to be clear in writing. It saves everybody time in the end. Don't assume anything. Everything's clear and in writing and agreed to up front. And payment terms are agreed to in writing. Payment options are made easy for the theater. Again, whatever you can do to help them succeed. Did I answer the question? Is that what you wanted me to say?
Yeah. And does that happen? What's the timetable on that? When a filmmaker puts his movie in the theaters, is it 6 months later he might see the theater box office return, or what is that?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to ask you a question first. I have $1,000. If I give it to you today, are you all right about that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take your
You'd
money.
say yes, right? If I gave it to you in 30 days, are you all right about that?
I'll take it. Sure.
And if I gave it to you in 45, would you be all right about that?
Yeah,
And
sure.
that's how it works. Some of those theaters pay weekly. After 2 weeks, you will have your payment and it will be in full and the numbers are accurate. And some of the theaters take 30 and 60 and more days, but
Okay.
you do get it.
Okay. So it just varies per theater, per chain.
It varies, and you don't have to play with the ones that pay later, but the ones that pay later usually are the bigger chains. So of course you want to play. You need them. You need them to win.
Okay.
And they'll help you win and you'll get your $1,000, but it might be a few days later than tomorrow.
Well,
Amazing.
that
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
Because it's timely. One of the biggest news events has happened in the last week or so. Sony bought Alamo Drafthouse, which is like the first time since the Paramount decree that we've had a distributor own a theater chain. Have you been paying attention to that? I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Is it a good thing for the industry? Is it a bad thing?
I'll take you back in time because I came into this from the marketing and from the media buying side. And I remember when Disney bought ABC and everyone was aghast. Why in the world would Disney buy ABC? And the answer was simply ABC is a distribution point and Disney is a creator. And if the creator doesn't make sure that they have distribution points, at a point in time, the creator could be shut off completely from the audience. Now that's way back. That's like the first creator that bought a media company, but that's it. So I go back to that. I just remember thinking, you got to be kidding me. Why would they want to get in? Media is messy. Media companies are messy. Why would you want to get in a media messy company? And that was why. And you can see what's happened since.
Yeah, now they all have it. Amazing. Yeah, what a story. Susan, this has been so great to hear your experience. Congratulations on just the incredible home run that you've hit with TC's film. And
Thank you, and I'll pass it on. Any squirrel out there could have done it with a great TC film that he created. So it was terrific that it got to be me.
okay, okay, fantastic. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank.
Oh man, Susan is great, Garrett. That was so wonderful to have her not only join us on the podcast, but to have her on our team. I'm feeling so excited about this because 11 weeks in theaters with an indie that's a very Utah movie. That's amazing.
Yeah, Susan's great, and for her to share that information, and I mean, she's super humble. Says, "Oh, anybody could do it with a TC movie. TC makes incredible movies." But no, Susan has certainly stepped up and helped that film succeed. It's awesome.
Tell me about how you put this team together, because you've got me and you, and then you've got the Purdy brothers, who we met last week. I shouldn't say the Purdy brothers, the brothers that own Purdy Distribution, the Montiers brothers.
Montiers, yeah.
And now we've got Susan. And so we've kind of shown the audience the team here, but can you give us a little bit more insight into why we're doing it this way and why you chose the team that you did?
Well, it's still coming together. There's still a key element that we'll bring in, our marketing side of it. Susan is going to help with our regional marketing in Utah, in the Utah DMA. But yeah, I mean, I think as we build this team, we want people with experience. We want people that know what they're doing, have proven that they can do what they say they're going to do. And then, I mean, as Susan pointed out, it's it's a lot of work, right? And so for an independent film to be released on 600 screens, that's going to take a lot of hands to make that happen. So she's going to be a key part of that.
Yeah, the idea that like you and or I together would pull it off on our own is ridiculous. Like just hearing about the Monday calls and not taking lunch and the amount of things that need to go out each week, all the shipping, like you've got to have a team for that. Not just a point person, but she's got to have a team that's hustling 24/7, taking calls, taking emails, always on call, ready to go. And like, that's a big part of why it takes so much to put a movie into theaters. It's not just calling up theater and going, hey, I want to put my movie in theaters. Like, you can see the value of the relationships she's had over decades now, working with these bookers and these buyers and these other marketers and these other filmmakers, and how that makes it easy for her, whereas it would be near impossible for us to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so, yeah, let's build a team full of people that are able to do what we need done.
Awesome. Well, so I'm just going to say the date and people can work backwards from November 1st, but it's June 18th as we're recording this. And so where are we at? Where are you at? What's on your mind right now? What's your focus this week as we're getting ready for these releases?
So we are definitely like in rush mode as far as getting an initial trailer done and out to theaters. We're in the middle of summer, And that's when a lot of people are going to movies. And so we need to have a presence where people are already, they have the habit of going to movies. Let's have a visual presence there. So I have asked the Monteers, the Purdy distribution, to just start booking screens, even the low-hanging fruit, the ones that are aware of the film or that Purdy has succeeded with in the past. Let's book those screens right away and get a trailer and posters in the theaters. Um, we've received uh, a print for the poster, I guess a proof for the poster and the key art, and have approved that. And so that will be printed this week and shipped out. And then the trailer, I submitted it to the Krebs family last night for their approval. So they will, once we get approval on that, we'll start duplicating that. That has to go on DCPs, but they're little thumb drive DCPs, and they get sent out to all the theaters as well.
Amazing. Yeah. So months out, these are the things we're thinking of. It's not something you turn on and 2 weeks later you're in theaters. Like, this takes a lot of runway and a lot of prep work and a lot of effort and coordination from a lot of people in order to put a movie in theaters. That's cool to hear. I'm excited to get the trailer out. So you put the trailer in theaters, and then are we sending people to the carpentermovie.com? Like, where are we sending people? Because they can't buy tickets yet. There's no ticketing available. So what's the strategy there?
Right. There's no ticketing available. But yes, it's right now the play at the carpentermovie.com is to add your zip code and email so that you can be alerted when theaters become available. And so, every day I'm getting a few emails from people that have stumbled onto the trailer or website or whatever it is, or the podcast is generating interest, and people are requesting theaters. So we're getting an idea of where our listeners are, but where people want to see the movie.
Awesome. So the listeners of this podcast can go to carpentermovie.com and be a part of that, which is pretty exciting. Like, I love that aspect of it, as I've had conversations with people getting excited about, oh, you got the podcast and the movie's coming out. We've been waiting for 2 years. It's like, yeah, go and sign up, because it's an opportunity to be involved and make sure it comes to where you want to see it. And there's like that level of interaction with the audience is really, really cool. It's something I'm really loving about this version of distribution, rather than, like we've talked about, just handing it off to a distributor and saying, please send us money. It's really cool to be doing it together with the audience. So fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do, and but it's nice to have a team to do it with.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into our listener questions today. I have one for you, but so Garrett, the first question for this week from last week's episode, talking with the Monteers brothers, is how did you guys do this? Like, they're a traditional distributor, but you guys have a non-traditional kind of relationship or setup with them. How did you do that? Because a lot of people, I think, would love to be able to say, oh, I'm in charge of the distribution, but you guys are handling the booking and the logistics. How did that come together?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, as we've mentioned, the Carpenter is a unique situation. And the Krebs family wanted to make sure and maintain an element of control on where the movie was going to play and how it was going to be positioned. And so in order to own that type of decision making, they had to come up with the funds. So we did find a distributor that essentially we had to say, look, we have P&A already taken care of. Most distributors will come in and they'll give you a certain amount of P&A that they say this film will probably do this much, therefore we're going to give this much P&A to make our money back. We didn't go that route. We said, look, we have P&A. This is our goal on 600 screens. We need to find a distributor that would facilitate that happening. So essentially, it's a little bit of a work for hire, which there are independent film distributors that do that. I mean, the idea is that if you can build this team that works together in cooperation and a win-win type scenario, that's a good way to go for independent film.
All right, then our second question is, how did you find Purdy? They sound awesome. And so where did that relationship come from? We talked about how we met the Monteers brothers at the festival last year, but how did you meet Purdy Distribution back in the day?
So yeah, great question, and that might be I'll try not to give a long answer to warrant a whole nother episode. But essentially, Brandon Purdy, who founded Purdy Distribution, saw one of my early films. He was working or had worked for a distributor that I had submitted the film to. That distributor passed about the same time that Brandon was leaving that distributor, and so Brandon reached out and said, "Hey, I'm interested in distributing that film," and we've had a great relationship from there. When he then built his company and sold it to the Monteith brothers, they reached out and we maintained that good working relationship.
Awesome. So this will be your fourth with Purdy Distribution then?
Yeah. Yeah, and the takeaway, I guess, for anybody is, I mean, certainly Purdy Distribution is incredible, and reach out to them. They have great, if your film fits within their parameters, they're a great solution. I think the takeaway for any independent filmmaker is it's about relationships. There's the film, and we've had successes, and we've had less than successes with Purdy or with other distributors that I've distributed with. But I've always maintained, and I think filmmakers do themselves a favor if they can maintain that positive relationship. And just, obviously there needs to be best interests in mind for both parties. If a distributor's taking advantage of you or unresponsive, that's probably not a good relationship to maintain. But I think there are enough opportunities out there for distributors and enough filmmakers out there that once you find somebody that does, that you work well together, it's worthwhile to invest time and energy and resources into helping each other succeed.
Amazing. Yeah, and like we've said before, where do you meet these guys or gals? You go to film festivals. Like, if you want to make a faith-based film in Utah, go to the Zion's Indie Film Fest, or right, because that's where all of these distributors are at. They're there watching the movies to see what's good and what's coming out, and what movies do they want to have a conversation about. Just the same thing that happens at Sundance or Cannes or Toronto or any of these other big festivals where, that's the biggest movie of that festival. Everybody's clamoring for that. You kind of had a similar thing happen with The Faith of Angels this year. You had a number of people wanting to sit down and have a conversation about the distribution of the movie. And then that gave you a lot of options. And so, take your films to the right festival. Make sure it aligns with the type of festival it is. If it's a horror festival or a drama festival or a documentary festival, faith-based, whatever it is, align with what the goals of the festival is. But then if you don't have a film yet, go to those festivals and figure out who are the distributors, because they're there. They're probably sitting right next to you in the same seats in the same theater, and you can strike up a conversation, say, "Hey, I think I know you guys," and there you go. You have a relationship started, and then you continue it and you nurture it over a decade, and that's what makes it easy now, 10 years later, to just have the conversation about, "Hey, we want to do it this way," and they go, "Great, we just want to work with Garrett, so let's go."
One of the most fun experiences at this last Zion's Indie Film Fest, which again isn't a faith-based exclusive film festival. It's all, generally family or drama or things like that. But it was enjoyable this last year to be there with other filmmakers. We're kind of in a filmmakers lounge, and the Monteith brothers were there. And for me to be able to introduce them to other filmmakers, say, "Hey, I appreciate the interest in Faith of Angels, and that's exciting that that conversation is taking place." But I'd say, "Hey, have you met so and so? They've got a new film that's premiering next week at the festival. You should take a look at it." And we've been able to do that and try to build up the community. The more that Purdy has to distribute, the more films get made, and the more success we can have as independent filmmakers.
Awesome. All right, Garrett, that's another great episode. Very, very cool. Thanks for helping set that one up. And man, we've got another good episode next week. Another guest, I think. We'll announce it next week. How about that?
Okay. Thanks, man. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To join us on the journey, be notified of new episodes and screenings, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review. podcast app and be sure to share this episode with a friend. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.